Dun da 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 dun da da. Breaking news, emergency podcast, Cabinet Shuffle Edition, July 17th, 2025. Welcome, Jeff, to our emergency podcast.
I'm very glad to be here, Mike. What happened to Kate?
We
She's
just
gone,
got out of
Mike.
bed. Yeah, I don't know where Kate is. We didn't even bother trying to find her. She,
Okay, well, we'll try to do
she's,
it without her.
she's going to be shocked when she gets back to Hotel Pacifico to see what we've done here.
That's right.
Okay, so we've got some breaking news. Fairly significant cabinet shuffle. I count two ministers leaving, two ministers arriving from the backbench, and eight ministers in total, or eight ministries having a new minister. So let's
Yeah.
just run through the lineup. And Jeff, I'll go through the lineup, and you chirp away, and then you and
Okay.
I can figure out what the heck happened. Does that make sense?
Okay, let's try that.
Okay, let's talk about who's out. Leaving
Who's out?
cabinet. Solicitor
Okay.
General Gary Begg from Surrey Guildford is left cabinet, along with Minister of Citizen Services George Chow from Vancouver Fraserview.
hmm Okay,
Now,
let me
sure,
just I can say this because I'm old.
yeah,
They're old. And George Shaw, very effective, been successful in politics. He's elected in, I think it's Kensington. I can't remember the exact riding name.
Vancouver Fraserview.
Yeah, went to Citizen Services in a previous shuffle of sorts, but now has got a parliamentary secretary role with a really, really difficult pair of uh, communities named with it, which is Chinatown. He knows a ton about that and the downtown east side. So it's not clear what he's going to be doing. I guess trying to fix some of the main issues that are down there. And then Gary Begg is, of course, a retired RCMP officer, was Solicitor General. Now a parliamentary secretary. Remind me his role as a parliamentary
He's
secretary.
Parliamentary Secretary for Surrey Infrastructure.
Right. Got to be seen as a demotion. I don't understand it
Well,
exactly why,
he'll be
and
in the
Surrey
cabinet.
infrastructure is a nightmare. Yeah.
Okay, so well, first of all, let's get to the rest of the lineup, then we'll figure out what it means. Um, so probably the biggest change, I think, is Ravi Kahlon moving from housing and municipal affairs back to jobs and economic development. Actually, I think they're calling it jobs and economic growth.
hmm
Now, I was surprised that he relinquished the housing file um, because I think there was support for some of the things he was doing in the development community. So he's gone back to jobs, presumably to focus entirely on the tariff issue and other things to get BC's economy going. And he will be succeeded at Housing and Municipal Affairs by Christine Boyle, former Vancouver City Councillor, first term MLA for Vancouver Little Mountain. So what do you make of those two right there? Um,
Well, I noted the premier opened up by saying the world has changed since the election. So he set the table for a new context in which these changes would make sense as opposed to the way it was before Trump. So Ravi Kahlon, of course, opened the door to David Eby's leadership by deciding not to run himself and endorsing David Eby publicly. So he's the most critical of the front bench in a political alliance that's certainly going to have impact down the road, I think, for the NDP and for politics in the province. And he's gone back to a file which is JEDI. They called it JEDI now. I don't know what we'll call it if it's got a G at the end, but jobs and economic development. He's got good relations with the business community. Um, Snapshot on Christine Boyle, new, obviously a civic politician out of Vancouver, did a brief stint in Indigenous Affairs after she got elected last year. But the housing file is very different from when Callan took it on because he brought in all the measures of deregulation, of zoning, of impositions on municipalities and so on. And now Christine Boyle's coming in as just as the industry is obviously tanking. And the private sector side is not able to get new starts. And Ravi Callan's last act, well, he did it in March, but only announced it a couple of days ago, was to transfer $250 million received from the feds for housing to existing projects just to make sure they got finished. So when those are built out, it's not clear how many housing starts we're going to have. So Christine Boyle's got a really, really difficult job.
okay, so she's been appointed on the eve, well, practically eve of UBCM convention. It's two
hmm
months away.
hmm
So, maybe there's a tone change or something like that in terms of relations with local governments. We'll see. She is known as, or fairly or unfairly branded as, kind of on the harder left side of the NDP. She's been very outspoken in the past on energy issues and things of that nature. So we'll see how that plays out.
She did not have a great run at Indigenous relations. It's hard to know how much is that is her
Yeah,
responsibility, how much was the context and the difficulties of the
yeah.
legislation. But relations are not great there, to put it mildly, with First Nations, and that's going to be a problem for Spencer Chandler Herbert to reckon with.
Well, she may have been uncomfortable with Bill 15. We don't know.
No.
But that's welcome to politics. You got to do things
Well,
that
Premier Eby leaned in
you
very
don't
hard to.
like.
Premier Eby really wanted her in government heading cabinet.
Yeah.
He leaned hard into the nomination fight, so he's got a lot of confidence in her.
And she is godmother to his child or something like that.
Hmm. Right.
Okay, so let's talk about some other changes here. So Diana Gibson is out as Minister of Jobs. She was a rookie MLA. I don't think she'd really neither had the time or maybe not the background to take on the jobs file during a U.S. tariff dispute. So she's out. She's at Minister of Citizen Services, which is typically a quiet ministry. Sometimes there's
Hmm.
issues that come up and bite you, but generally it's a pretty quiet ministry. Um, Other changes, and this one was a big surprise to me, was Solicitor General, Minister for Public Safety is Nina
Me too.
Krieger,
Yeah.
Victoria Hillside. I did not see that coming. I assumed that if Gary Begg was leaving cabinet, Terry Young would step up.
I had made the same prediction
Yeah,
when I heard there was a cabinet shuffle. Terry Young again, someone in Vancouver from VPD who was very much liked by the Premier. He made it, I think it was quite obvious the Premier would really hope that Young would win that nomination, which is in downtown Vancouver.
yeah.
And he's played a prominent role.
He
So this
elbowed
is a tricky
aside
one.
Kennedy Stewart's wife.
Yeah, very sharply.
Um,
But this
I don't
file is
remember her
key.
name, Jeanette.
Sarah Kirby Young.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
thing is that,
Terry Young's wife, Sarah Kirby Young. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sorry. Who were
Sorry.
you elbowing or referring to?
Well, I was elbowing Kennedy Stewart's wife, who wanted that nomination.
Oh, yeah, Jennifer. Yeah,
Jeanette,
sorry, I've got it
this is
wrong. Still got
terrible.
it wrong.
We
Yeah,
apologize.
I apologize.
We're we're
Many, many
we're
names today.
we're going too fast here. We're trying to do too much.
Yeah.
We'll circle back on that fact. But into cabinet is new post-secondary
Well, just stop
education.
with Nina Krieger for a minute.
Okay, you're right.
Okay, so
This is
she's
chaotic.
very capable. She ran the Holocaust Center here in Vancouver for many, many years. And her nomination was significant because she's a prominent figure in the Jewish community, very active in Victoria in a number of ways. But it's noted in the sort of breakdown that the Premier's office gives you about how many women are there and so on, that there's a member of the Jewish community in cabinet. So apart from her skill sets, which are not necessarily are great, but not necessarily aligned with Solicitor General, she continues that healing process, or what the Premier hopes will be a healing process with the Jewish community after the struggle he
Yeah,
had with Selena Robinson.
right. Yeah, so and then I think the Kriegers have been very involved in NDP politics for a long time too.
Yeah,
Um, so that's an interesting appointment. Also on the move, Spencer Chandra Herbert from Tourism, Arts, and Culture over to Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. So that's a big file. Like that's an important file. I'm not sure what the rationale was for that. I don't perceive that he had a lot of experience in that area. He's been MLA for a long time. I think he's been MLA
hmm.
for 16 years. Um, New to cabinet since 2024, I think. What's your take on that one?
Well, his riding is the West End, so there's not a lot of opportunity to foster relationships with First Nations in that riding because it's not a major feature down there. But I think he's another one who's got his hands full because, as I said, the relations between First Nations and the government now are at a recent low, maybe an all-time low, because they invited Terry Teege to go on the Asia trip with the premier, and he declined, or actually withdrew after having decided to go. So also, this file is very much an economic development file, and trying to make sure that Indigenous rights and interests are considered in some of these major projects is going to be a big file for Spencer to work on. He was for many years the deputy speaker, so
Yeah,
he was not in the cut and thrust as much as others. But
right.
yeah, a big jump for him, I think. It looks like a small ministry, but its political consequences are enormous, and
Yeah. Um, then we've got Ann King, who's moved from post-secondary over to tourism, arts, and culture and sport to
right.
replace Spencer. And then her ministry opened up to a new new MLA to cabinet, Jesse Sunner from Surrey Newton. So Jesse Sunner is one of the two new ministers, along with Nina Krieger. And so post-secondary is a big file. Um, and then Ann Kang, who has been post-secondary minister twice, I think, has now moved over to tourism. So, I mean, those moves. I
Well,
mean, Jesse Sunner's one to watch, I guess, to see if
the great thing
she.
about Jesse or Ann Kang, in my view, is that you never hear about Ann Kang. And why is that? It's because she is a really steady manager. So the premier sent her to a file. Post-secondary has been going through grievous cuts and rollbacks, partly driven by the huge changes in immigration policy. So Anne's been there while the post-secondary system struggles with huge reductions in revenue, not necessarily driven by the province, but by just declining enrollment. So I think she's very capable. She's going to be taking over tourism in the front end of the FIFA World Cup issue. And we're starting to see some of the World Cup problems, FIFA issues emerge,
Yeah.
like the staggering cost of tickets and the expenditures that are going to be made there in the face of cuts elsewhere. So he's put a steady hand in a file where a steady hand is going to be required, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Now
Very capable person. But to go
here's
back to
a
Jesse, she's I
yeah.
think a lawyer by training, labor side lawyer. He's strengthening the Surrey bench by doing that. I haven't done the arithmetic, but I think he's adding a cabinet seat there in Surrey.
So here's a little detail is that Jesse Center is the chair of the Democratic Reform Committee that's doing the hearings on electoral reform that the Greens wanted. She has to step down now, I believe, as chair of that parliamentary committee because it can't be you can't have ministers on those committees.
Hmm.
So that changes the composition and the numbers on that committee. And they can't
Yeah.
appoint, I don't think they can appoint a new member when the legislature's not sitting. So just a little detail that might change the dynamics there and give conservatives a
So
bit
I
more of
just
an
want to
upper
interrupt
hand.
this broadcast to say that Kennedy Stewart's partner is Jeanette Ash.
Yes.
And so apologies, Jeanette, because I blanked on your name.
Yeah, no, yeah, thanks. We're not going off the usual script here today, folks. We're flustered. We're a bunch of old guys trying to keep up with events. One more minister to note here. Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence and New Technologies is Rick Glumac. He was a Minister of State for Trade. Glumac does have a bit of a technology background, but I think the key thing on this one is they're mirroring the federal cabinet, which has a Minister of Artificial Intelligence, Evan Solomon. So the BC's catching up on the AI front. So he'll have a job to do.
I'm
Then there
sure
were
he's happy with the title, but frustrated he's not a full minister. Rick has been there for a long time, doing service for the government back to 2017.
So changes to parliamentary secretaries. Amna Shah, now parliamentary secretary for anti-racism initiatives, mental health and addictions. That's
That's
interesting.
a brutal assignment.
That's
May
two
I say
different
why?
things, I think.
Yeah, two different places where a lot of concern and frustration in the community comes to her to hear it, particularly about
Yeah.
changes in mental health treatment and addictions and so on. But she's got no power to implement any changes on her own. So I think it's a tough job with some very legitimately concerned stakeholders.
Well, this is the thing going back to Gary Begg and George Chow. I mean, Gary Begg's parliamentary secretary for Surrey infrastructure, and if I'm Brenda Locke, tough grandma, I'm thinking like I got somebody on Surrey infrastructure and they're not in cabinet.
Yeah.
Like I'll be talking to
Hmm.
the cabinet. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then George Chow, parliamentary secretary for downtown Eastside and Chinatown, is like it already is a bit of a jurisdictional mess down there. And now they're throwing in a minister of state. I thought we were getting a czar. Is he the czar of the
No, he's a
downtown East
parliamentary
Side?
secretary. Is George a minister of state? I'm sorry, I
No,
still
he's a
got.
parliamentary secretary
Yeah, so
for the
that's a.
downtown East Side and Chinatown. So how's that? Where does that fit into the whole alphabet soup of people involved in the downtown East Side? And the
Mhm.
interesting thing about George Chow is that when he ran as an independent counselor, didn't get elected, but I'm going back to like 2008 or
Right.
thereabouts. He
Three.
was actually very opposed to what was then the Four Pillars. He
Hmm.
then he then kind of evolved his thinking and ended up with you, Geoff, on the
Hmm.
Vision Council
Yeah.
and had a very successful run He's had a very successful run as a vision counselor and an NDP candidate. So
Hmm.
we'll see what take he's got. He's got a footprint in Chinatown, though, that's for sure.
No, he ran businesses there and was head of some very significant Chinatown organizations, but he's just been dropped from cabinet.
Yeah.
And this is a huge priority the premier's identified on a number of occasions. So, you have Terry Young there working on the disorder side, which is really what the Chinatown merchants are most frustrated about if you talk to them most times.
Mm.
And you can see why. But and we had the recent debacle, frankly, with Michael Bryant, the former Attorney
Yeah.
General of Ontario, who came in to work on that problem and then unceremoniously got dumped.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure to sum up what the premier is focusing on here is the economy, and he wants prosperity. He said economy many, many times. So I think that makes sense. That is a critical priority, and he says they're going to looking for prosperity. We've got it all there. So I think he wanted to strengthen the economic side of the cabinet. Ravi Kalan's now got a ministry, such as it is. It doesn't have a ton of levers, but he's got a full
No.
ministry, whereas before he was just working with housing, which
He's
was.
also chair of that cabinet committee on tariffs
Yeah, but this is a
as well.
question I had for you, Mike. Didn't you find that there was your experiences, because it was mine, that it wasn't so much whether you had a so-called ministry to run something, but if you had a cabinet structure with working groups or cabinet committees that
Mm.
were tasked with a particular problem, that it got done better. That was my feeling.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the premier's office how much latitude they're giving to
Hmm.
those
Right.
groups and to the individual ministers in their realms, right? Because sometimes the premiers will run off and do things, and it kind of demotivates independent action if you don't really know what you're allowed to do. Um, so we'll see how. I mean, Ravi Kalan and Premier obviously have a pretty good relationship, and you covered it earlier. You endorsed them and all that kind of thing. Um, but it's the jobs ministry itself is not. It's more of an influencer and less of a doer. There's not a lot of horses in that ministry in terms
That's right.
of people working on things, implementing things. It's more of the soft power of knitting things together across government. Deputy Minister Fazil Millar is, in my opinion, very, very good at that
Hmm.
and essential to the economic agenda for the province. But the minister and Fazil can't really do much unless they've got the cooperation of forestry and mining and all the other ministries involved that they're implementing things that will be good for investment. I should also note Paul Choi from Burnaby's
Right.
Parliamentary Secretary for Trade as well. Those are all the changes. Um, if I'm sitting at home in, you know, Dawson Creek or, Karamias or, Zabalas, I'm probably thinking, you know, whatever, cabinet shuffle, big deal. Um, Hotel Pacifico put out a poll on Twitter today asking whether anyone was going to care about this shuffle or whether it was only Mike McDonald that would care about it. And so far, about 82% say only Mike McDonald cares. So that may well be the case. But when you have a shuffle this big, this early, only 8 months in, it does suggest it's a government that's still trying to find its legs and needing to, maybe give itself a kick in the pants, right? Because they do have a lot of challenges. They have external challenges on the economy, but they've got profound fiscal problems inside government. There's that wasn't really a feature of the shuffle today. And then healthcare untouched. So Josie Osborne's left in
Hmm.
place to deal with the growing cacophony of issues that are making news, especially this week with the funding of the rare disease medication. Um, so, the jury will be out.
Well, and this government runs very much from the premier's office. And if that's always true, but it's especially true in this government, I think. And if the problem was seen to be the front bench or key parts of the front bench, that wasn't obvious to most observers. It's still going to be on the premier himself to find the vision and the way forward and coordinate that effort in the front bench. And I'm going to say the word that others may say later, just so I can say I said it first. But there's always been a lack of stability in a minority government, whoever is running it. So 24 months is a good run.
Yeah.
This government's been blessed by chaos on the opposition benches. which seems to be continuing. So, but that can't be assumed.
So
And
you're
this
saying
may
this is
be,
the election cabinet?
well, is it? I mean, if there's significant instability or the premier wants to seek a mandate to do particularly dramatic things in the face of whatever it is, Trump or some other issue, is this strengthening his electoral offering? I think is always a question for a minority government, even though this one seems pretty stable. And in every cabinet change, as chiefs of staff know all too well, they're very happy winners, and there's usually some twisted losers as well, or people who thought they should have been winners but are not. And that's always a management problem later, which can manifest itself.
Well, I guess what I'll be watching is whether Ravi Kahlon becomes even more high profile in driving a jobs message for the government, and whether Jessie Sunner is going to emerge as a major player in BC politics now that she's in cabinet and in a significant portfolio.
Yeah,
Um, well, Geoff, thanks
off to the beach.
you're off to the beach.
Not
I'm
not
going.
quite, but
Okay, I'm going back to work. So thanks for joining me, and hope our listeners find this occasionally shambolic podcast uh, of entertain, trying to make a cabinet
informative,
shuffle entertaining,
informative, and entertaining. Yeah.
informative, and hopefully entertaining for political geeks. We'll see you soon at our regularly scheduled time next week. Hotel Pacifico guests, BC. You can never leave.